Hello, all. My name is Elias Dean, and I'm here to talk about William Butler Yeats, uh, one of probably the best Irish poet out there. And, we're going to give you a brief overview of his life, and then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes about why he's such a good poet. Who was William Butler Yeats? Well, William Butler Yeats was born in Dublin in 1865 and then died also in Ireland in 1939. His father was very Irish supporting, and his mother was British backing. This was because, his father was born in Ireland, his mother was born in Britain. He moved his father moved the family between Ireland and Britain because, well, he was an artist, and so he had to go to a bunch of art schools and um, places like that in order to support his artwork. His mother, on the other hand, was more of a businesswoman, so she was the main breadwinner. Artist family. So what that means is like William Butler Yeats took after his father, and he became an artist, poet, and his brother also became an artist like his father. And well, his mom wasn't really supportive about it, but I mean, she was there. She was all right with it. He also took after his father in that he was very proud of his Irish heritage. And in 1899, he wrote The Wanderings of Usheen and other poems, and that's what got him on the map and got him famous. So for now, we're going to talk about themes in Yeats' poems. We're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about age. We're going to talk about Irish national or Irish folk tales and folk tales in general, and Irish nationalism in Yeats' poems. So we're first off, we're gonna start about love. So he moved back to Dublin where he met Maud Jode. And if you don't know at this time, Britain and Ireland were going around and well, Ireland was trying to get its independence because it didn't like being subjects of Britain. And Maud Jode was a revolutionary woman. I mean, she had it all. She had like the red hair, she had the Kiss Me I'm Irish shirts, she had the kilt, she had the bagpipes, all that mess. So he fell in love with that. But she didn't love him, but he dedicated a lot of love poems to her. So here's one of them. He wishes for the cloths of heaven. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths, and wrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night, and light and the half light, I would spread the cloths under your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. So I think it's about a poor person, wanting to spoil his lover, with fabulous gifts. But, since they're poor, they can't really. But he wants the lover to know that he really wishes that he could. And I think we all get that feeling sometimes that you want to do more for the person that you love, but you simply can't because of resources that you were, or just the cards that you were dealt with. So he proposed in 1891 and was rejected, and then he proposed in 1899 and was rejected, and then 1900 rejected, 1901 rejected. Yeah, she did not like him, like that. I mean, they were friends. His lack of activism may have played a part in them not getting married, and that was because she ended up getting married to another revolutionary who was more rootin' tootin' shooting, while Yates was more like a reading, writing, publishing kind of guy for Irish freedom. So here's another love poem. It's called "The Song of the Wandering Angus," and let's read it. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on a wig, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame. But something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with an apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering, through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips, and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done, the silver apples of the moon, and the golden apples of the sun. So, um, this kind of goes along with Irish folk tales. There's this one guy named Angus, and he met a woman, and he tried following her, but he couldn't find her again. It's kind of like the Apollo, I think it's Daphne story, if you know it. But He just kept looking for her and searching for her, but was never able to find her. But it's I mean, I think this is more like Yeats' his own life. He put his own spin on it because he kind of felt this way about Maud Goat, in that he always searched for her and that tried to get married to her, but she always went through and faded through the brightening air, said no. So I think this is kind of like the story of Yeats' love life, and I think that's why it's a very important poem to him. So now we're going to talk about his poems about age. T.S. Eliot described Yeats as a poet who lived through multiple generations of poetry. And so what that means is like uh, what he defined a generation of poetry as is 20 years. So there's 20 years before a new style of writing comes out, and then all the poets would adapt to it or, would fade away. However, Yeats was such a good poet that he just kept going and going and going. And, eventually when you write about all those kinds of poems, you end up not having something to write on at the end of your life. So, like I said, Yeats's poems at the end of his life were about age mainly and being lost about what to write on. So you can see this in the Spur, the Circus Animals dissertation, and the Sailing to Byzantium. So I have two of them right here. Byzantium was a little bit long, so I'll summarize it for y'all, but we have the first stanza of Circus Animal. So I'll read it. I sought a theme and I sought for it in vain. I sought it daily for 6 weeks or so. Maybe at last, being but a broken man, I must be satisfied with my heart, although winter and summer till old age began, my circus animals were all on show. Those stilted boys, that burnished chariot, lion and women, and Lord knows what. So I apologize for reading it a little bit badly, but obviously, his circus animals mean poems, right? All of his poems were all on show, all of his most famous ones, right? And he can't find a theme to write on because he's kind of written everything that you could write on. That's what he feels like. And so I think that everyone feels about that. It's not burnout. It's more like you don't know what to do next after being so successful. But he ends up, throughout the poem, he finally lands on let me think back on other poems, and then it's kind of like he thinks about all the other poems that he wrote on. The first play that he wrote on, it just becomes a memory link for that poem. The Spur, here it is. You think that it is horrible that lust and rage should dance attention upon my old age. They were not such a plague when I was young. What else have I to spur me into song? So what this poem is all about is just saying that, oh, well, y'all didn't have a problem with me writing about, weird and, or I mean, controversial subjects when I was young. So why do you have a problem with it when I'm old? Stop being such a liberal about it. So I apologize. That's not, that was, that I'm sorry. Um, what that means is like, he wants people to not say, oh, you can't write about this. Well, why can't I write about this? Well, it's not appropriate. Well, he has a problem with that. And so he addressed it in the Spur. So now we're going to talk about Yeats and his folk tales, or what he wrote about. So Yeats was for the independence of Ireland and wanted to set Irish culture as a separate culture to English. So he did this through writing poems. The Song of the Wandering Angus, what I said, it was an Irish folktale, and the Lake Isle of Innisfree, which is kind of writing about, Innisfree was an island that was a part of Ireland, that is a part of Ireland. It's like a getaway destination now. He wrote about folk tales in general because he just enjoyed them. So Leda and the Swan, The Second Coming, and Veronica's Napkin. So for time's sake, I will be summarizing The Second Coming. We'll be looking at some important images throughout the poem, but we'll be here long enough to where you can read it. So one line in particular, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. So one source I've read on that is that it's kind of talking about how nature and man just cannot be together. Um, another one I want to look at is this shape with a lion's body and the head of a man. So at the end of the world, you see nature and, man coming together. And what I took away from that is like, well, why does that matter now? I mean, land and and nature and man coming together and living in harmony, that's perfect. I think that's good, right? But it's at the end of the world, which means it's pointless because it's the end of the world. Um, and so I think Yeats is kind of saying that, like, man and nature will never get along because, it just won't. It won't work. And then one more line I want to look at is what rough beast its hour come round at last slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. So if you don't know like Revelation and all that, you to put it simply, all the good people get, raptured, kind of, and we get taken up to heaven, all the good people, and then kind of like the bad people are left on earth to experience all that, all the bad stuff. And so obviously, I think people would see Jesus more like a as a beast than, as a savior because, well, you're going to be experiencing all the bad stuff that the second coming comes with. And I think this poem is the speaker of this poem is going to be someone that was sadly left on earth while the second coming is happening. So it's a pretty bad poem. I mean it's a good poem, but like, the subject matter is a little bit sad or tragedy. Lita and the Swan to another to um this poem is kind of about, or no, it is about Leda and the Swan, aka Zeus, right? If you don't know that folktale, then here it is. A sudden blow, the great wings beating still above the staggering girl, her thighs caressed by the dark webs. Her nape caught in his bill, he holds her helpless breast upon his breast. How can those terrified vague figures push the feathered glory from her loosening thighs? And how can body, laid in that white rush, but feel the strange heart beating where it lies? A shudder in the loins engenders there the broken wall, the burning roof and tower, and Agamemnon dead. Being so caught up, so mastered by the brute blood of the air, did she put on his knowledge with his power before the indifferent beak could let her drop? So this poem is so this one actually is like what got me into Yeats, sadly. This was the first one I read and it made me uncomfortable. I think this is like genuinely one of the first poems that actually like made me feel something, and this poem made me feel uncomfortable to read. It's talking about rape, and rape's uncomfortable. So, and that is the story about Leda and the Swan. Zeus rapes Leda in the form of a swan, and it's so it he's really good. Yates is really good at making you feel stuff. And you'll see it here in the Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there, of clay and wattles made, 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for a honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There's midnight all a glimmer, and noon's a purple glow, and evening's full of linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on this roadway or on pavements gray, I hear it in a deep heart's core. I ain't gonna lie, this is my favorite poem by Yeats. I ain't gonna lie. Um, it's for that feeling that we all get. It's kind of like, oh, I want to escape. Uh, you know, this modern day life. I mean, you can see it. He even acknowledges it here. When I stand on the roadway or on pavements gray, this person, the speaker of this poem, is in a city, most definitely, and they are wanting to get out of the hustle and bustle of the city and want to escape, probably build themselves a new life. Innisfree is a real place in Ireland. It's an uninhabited island, and most likely Yeats probably saw this island and wanted to get away from all the revolution, all the tension that was going on in the bigger city. And uh, I agree. I agree. I think we all have that little Minecraft dream, you know, where we all get to escape. So now we're going to talk about Irish nationalism in Yeats' poems. So Yeats lived during the Irish independent movement, like the main part of it, and he wrote multiple poems in support of the movement. So An Irish Airman Foresees His Death, Easter 1916, and On a Political Prisoner. Um, I don't think I have on a political prisoner on this, so I'll just it's about a woman who's in prison, and it talks about, the life that she had before being in prison, and how it's so inspiring, because she's fighting for what she believes is right, and that should be respected. Oh, no, I actually have it. So, well, actually, let's just go over it now. She that but little patience knew from childhood on had now so much a gray gull lost its fear and flew down to her cell, and there alit, and there endured her fingers' touch, and from her fingers ate its bit. Did she, in touching that lone wing, recall the years before her mind became a bitter abstract thing? Her thoughts some popular enmity, blind and leader of the blind, drinking the foul ditch where they lie. When long ago I saw her ride under Ben Bullen to the meet, the beauty of her countryside with all youth's lonely wildness stirred. She seemed to have a grown clean, sleep, and sweet, like any rock shape or any rocked penned sea-born bird, sea-born or balanced on the air when first it sprang out of its nest, upon some lofty rock to stare upon the cloudy canopy, while under its storm-beaten breast cried out the hollows of the sea. So, um, like I said before, it's about a political prisoner who's a woman, and how she, the life that she kind of lived, before she got taken up by this whole revolution deal when she was young. But now that she's old, she's a political prisoner. She all she knows is like, revolution and everything like that. And it kind of, you know, made her this. Oh, no, didn't make her feel anything. Sorry, let me try that again. Um, it taught. I mean, the last stanza upon some lofty rock to stare. That one. I think it kind of talks about like the Irish freedom movement, and that it kind of describes Ireland's, surrounding, and that it's, lofty rocks. It's a very, cliffy place, and cried out the halls of the sea. It's kind of describing that Irish area, and so I think it should be respect, and I think she should be respected for that, rebelling against, a system that is very bad. So an Irish airman foresees his death. Um, So we'll just talk about this one. I know that I shall meet my fate somewhere along the clouds above. Though those I fight, I do not hate; those I guard, I do not love. My country is Kilterman's cross. My countrymen is Kilterman's poor. No likely end could bring them loss, or leave them happier than before. Nor law nor duty bade me to fight, nor public men, nor cheering crowds. A lonely impulse of delight drove this tumult in the clouds. I balanced all, brought all to mind. The years to come seemed a waste of breath, the years behind. And balance with this life, this death. I think this is one of Yeats' best poems. Um, it talks about, at the end of, during probably a dogfight, this guy gets shot down, and, instead of thinking about anything else, he just kind of thinks of this poem. He doesn't think about what he's left behind, because he doesn't feel anything about that. He doesn't, think about, the things that he could have had, because he just thinks it's a waste. And my country is Kilternan's cross. So I think what Yates is like talking about here is that, during World War One, a bunch of uh, English and Irish men went to fight, and more than likely, a couple Irish airmen died in the sky, and they probably weren't thinking about fighting for Britain and being proud of it, but more like, you know, oh, I wish I didn't fight for a system that didn't care for me. And I think it's a very powerful poem in that. Now I don't want to double jinx myself, but I don't know if I have Easter 1916 on here. I think that's the poem I was thinking about earlier. So Easter 1916, just to summarize, is about the speaker goes through multiple lives that each revolutionary had before they became a revolutionary, and then he talks about that and why they should be respected for rebelling against for just rebelling in general, and how all rebels should be respected because they're willing to lay their life down for a cause that might not come through in the end. And they're willing to just die for a cause they believe in. So now let's get to some, what do all these subjects have in common? Age, love, Irish nationalism, and folk tales and legends. Well, to put it simply, it's Yeats's life story in and of itself. So, I mean, he talks about like age in general and like in the circus animals and how it was like hard to write upon uh, themes. The speaker was writing upon like, how hard it is to write poems about themes because he already wrote about all of them. Well, that's a feeling that Yeats has most definitely had. And in English, I read, I don't know, I think this is in class, but we were all supposed to like, read this uh paper about how to write a poem, and it was like you should focus on not writing about how you feel in the moment, but ruminating on those feelings that you had before and then writing upon them then. I think that's definitely what Yeats has done throughout his whole life. In love, like I said before, most of his poems were written to Maud Jode, right? Uh, you know, to her and for her. And like I said, that's a part of Yeats's life as well. Irish nationalism, that's kind of obvious. He was a big support of Irish uh, Ireland in general, and folktales and legends. He enjoyed folktales and legends. I didn't bring it up, but in Sailing to Byzantium, um, he went to Istanbul itself just to go tourist, just as a tourist, and he enjoyed it so much and wrote folk tales of what he heard over there just because he wanted to hear and exposed his mind to more folk tales. So what is Yates' most exemplary poem? Well, to do that, I actually thank y'all so much for listening. So as a thank you, we're gonna do a tier list because I like tier lists. So first up, we have Easter 1916. It's a pretty good one, but sadly, it's too long for my taste. I don't think it's exemplary. I don't think it expresses him the most. So C tier. Oh, and to explain the rules of a tier list, S to D. So S is the best. This will only one poem will go up here. This will be exemplary, and then D is like, I mean, you could read it. It's supplementary. So this one is The Wandering Angus, and I like love poems. I really do. So it's a perfect B tier. I don't think it represents Yeats enough because sure it's an Irish folktale, but it doesn't really talk about age. Actually, it does talk about aging a little bit, but I don't think that's the main focus. This is Circus Animal's dissertation. Uh, I mean, it brings up mystical elements. It's kind of like a all-star playlist of his best poems. So it's a pretty good guide on where you should go next to read them. So I think it's an A tier. Irish Airman, uh, you know, it's it's really good, but it doesn't bring up the old Irish elements. It brings up Irish nationalism a lot, which is fine. I don't have a problem with it. So I don't have a problem with it, but I think it's up there for or it's B. It's B. I think it's just because it doesn't bring up Irish legends and everything. It's mm, kind of it's a good poem though. He wishes for the cloths of heaven. This one's about love and Irish, wanting to give, or and not an Irish folktale, that's Wandering Aimless, but this one's about love. I think all love poems are pretty good. I enjoy a good love poem, but let's see, it doesn't. It's not given Yeats. You could say like Robert Frost or William Blake or someone like that. He wrote a love poem or something. The Spur, it's too short. It's too short for Yeats. I mean, to talk about age, but too short. Lita and the Swan. Oh my gosh, shocking. Anna folktale. Yeah, this one holds a special place in my heart for Yeats, but it's not Irish. That's the problem. Veronica's Veil. I don't really talk about it. Veronica's Veil is just the story about Veronica and she and specifically Veronica's napkin. So when she wiped the face of Jesus. So it's a folktale, all right, but it doesn't represent Yeats, not Irish. Second Coming, it's pretty good. It's a Christian folktale, so surprisingly, it's not an S because it doesn't bring up Ireland at all, and Ireland is a big factor with all these Yeats poems. So obviously, my favorite, Lake Isle of Innisfree, it's obviously S tier. I mean, come on, it's the best. It brings out everything. It talks about age. Obviously, it doesn't talk about love, but it could talk about Sure, it doesn't talk about love, but it talks about Ireland in general, and I think it brings up that old nationalism where it's like, oh, it's given oh beautiful flirtatious skies, da, na, 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 na. It it's a peaceful kind of nationalism, and I like that. I don't have a problem with it. So here's Yeats's most exemplary poem, Lake Isle of Innisfree. Please go and read some more Yeats poems because he's a pretty good poet. Overall, that was a pretty good. Thank y'all for watching. It was thank y'all for listening as well. Uh, please let me know if you have any more questions about Yeats. I'll do my best to answer. Thank you.